Mike Murray.
This
is
SNL.
SNL
By the numbers.
Numbers.
Marty, short and sweet. Che, Joe, swipes at ScarJo. Snoopy ain't no bitch. There's the opening haiku for you. I'm your host, Mike Murray. This is SNL By The Numbers, the home of SNL stats. Tonight we are covering episode 978 of Saturday Night Live, hosted by five-timer Martin Short, musical guest Hozier. This podcast is a presentation of latenighter.com. So we are back on the second night of Hanukkah, the day after Christmas. It's Boxing Day. So who do I get with me? Making his 32nd appearance. This is our 64th By The Numbers show. So he's been on half of them. It's Jon Schneider. Happy Hanukkah. What's going on up there in Canada?
Mike, Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Thank you for having me on the show tonight. So great to be with you on this holiday season to wrap up 2024 coverage of Saturday Night Live.
Absolutely, and I hope you had a good week. And what do you even do on Boxing Day? Is there any traditions?
You typically go shopping, which I did do for a couple hours earlier in the afternoon, and it was as packed as you could imagine. So that is is it a Canadian thing to go shopping on Boxing Day?
Also,
all the sales are there.
British as well, like the UK has Boxing Day.
I guess I've never looked into it, but I feel like, is it Boxing Day because you have all these open boxes and you need to return shit?
That's what I figured.
I think it's. I mean, when I was in high school, it was like a pretty big deal. Like we would all go with all of our friends to the mall. Everything was off. I don't know why. It's weird that like there's so many American shopping holidays that get transferred over to Canada, but you guys don't do Boxing Day.
No, we already spent all our money. We're broke now.
Yeah, we don't want to shop more.
Yeah.
And the voice you are hearing right there, making his first appearance on By The Numbers, you know him, you love him. The host of That Week in SNL, Andrew Dick, is finally on the stat desk with us. How are you,
Finally,
Andrew?
I'm doing well. I think I had to back out of 2 episodes. I know that at least I committed to like a month before I realized what day it was. I committed to the By The Numbers that was the day after the election. And once I realized in the week of like, oh dear. And then election day happened. And I was like, there's no way I have the mental fortitude to talk about a Kamala Harris cameo on By The Numbers the next day. I had to back out. I feel like there was another failed attempt that I had to back out of, but I'm here now. It's after Christmas. We're chilling. Glad to be here.
All right. And since it is the day after Christmas, we are still going to go back in time, though.
Now, I just popped this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
So, as mentioned, December 26th, you might be thinking, what could Mike possibly have for this day? Because there's never been an episode of SNL that's aired between December 23rd and January 6th. So no shows to cover on Back in Time. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say happy would-be 70th birthday to Tony Rosado, cast member season 6 and 7, born on this day in Naples, Italy.
Bit of a stretch,
So,
Mike.
Yeah, bit of a stretch. I never do birthdays or things, but you know, we're gonna cover anyway. And then you're gonna love this one, John, because There Will Be Blood released in 2007 on this day. And again, you might be thinking, where is he going with this one? Oh, maybe he's going Maya Rudolph, longtime partner of P.T. Anderson, but also former head writer and cast member Jim Downey appears in that film as real estate broker Al Rose.
Right.
So that's Back in Time, December 26th in SNL history.
Now, I just popped this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
Also,
John?
I believe, Mike, there is a great SNL sketch, I Drink Your Milkshake. That is There Will Be Blood parody. Yeah.
And, you know, actually, in theory, maybe this is an historical day because John was just on our podcast That Week in SNL and for the first Candace Bergen Christmas episode. And I guess Lorne and Michael felt like it was pretty undercooked. So almost immediately after the holiday break, they came back to the offices with Chevy to start working on the next handful of episodes. That may have happened today. I don't know for sure.
It could have been. I
All
also
right.
know that Seinfeld, it was announced that the show would be ending after the last season on this day as well. So, JLD, Larry David, there's a little connection there, but
Okay, all right.
it's tough to do one.
Glad you found all these.
All of it.
Seinfeld, I will. So yeah, speaking of the Christmas episode, so Andrew was just saying how him and John just covered the first SNL Christmas show, of course, hosted by Candace Bergen way back in the day. So now we're talking about the most recent Christmas episode hosted by Martin Short. So we did have stats on him from before when he hosted with Steve, but let's take a look at his night this week before we look at everyone's screen time. So I think when the night ended, people were really excited about who to talk about, but there was definitely maybe a lack of Martin Short that we wanted to cover. So here we go. Without the Hozier intros, Marty Short logged 17 minutes, 43 seconds. So lowest screen time of the year other than Michael Keaton for a host. Here are his appearances: 6 minutes and a second in the 5-timer cold open, 6 minutes and 2 seconds in the monologue. So right there, that already accounts for, way over half his night. Then he appeared in 3 live sketches and 0 pre-tapes. So he had a minute 39 in the parking lot altercation, a minute 11 in the Christmas airport parade, and 2 minutes 50 was his longest sketch appearance in the Peanuts Christmas. So Andrew, over to you first. How did you feel about the maybe underusage of Marty Short this week?
Well, yeah, I mean, it very much disappointed me. Okay, I want to preface this. My opinions are my own here, and they do not. They are not anybody else's in the chat or anybody else listening. It does not reflect on you. I'm not enjoying this season. And at this point it's like if I'm not jiving with an episode, I will just turn it off. And so this was an episode, surprisingly, for a Christmas episode. I turned it off because it was all just rehashed sketches I had already seen. And there was no Marty, but there was everybody else. And I got to the beginning of Sabado Gigante again, and I was like, I don't want to. And then I heard that it wasn't even Marty as the befuddled white guy in it, and I was just like, yeah, I guess I think I made the right choice. I don't Marty's up there for sure, but it did seem like the season, all of a sudden, all the cameos that should have been spread around the season, up to this point, just all jam-packed into this one episode. And it wasn't a Martin Short episode. It felt very bizarre. Like, it didn't feel like it was hosted by anybody. It felt like it was hosted by 20 people, which gave it a very odd aura. And then just the fact that it was all rehashed stuff I had already seen mostly, was not thrilling.
So I have to ask, was the moment you turned it off when you just saw the introduction for Sabado Gigante and you were like, that's enough?
Yeah, sadly. And I liked the first iteration, but already in that night, I knew that they weren't really going to be having any new take on it. So I just okay, I'm done. I'm not.
You heard it here first, folks. Andrew Dick hates Univision.
I said I liked the first one, but I just knew it was going to be another baffled white guy, and they're going to run through the kind of the same beats, and it wouldn't be anything new for me. So I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I want to go listen to some music or something.
Andrew Dick was very similar to Colin Jost, seething at the bilingual monologue back in the day for the Sarah News. So 23 minutes 10 seconds when Martin Short had a joint host with Steve Martin, up to 17 minutes, 53 seconds total for his night this time. So, John, over to you. If I know you covered it in these all-star episodes, but let's just talk about Marty first. So, looking at his sketches, of course, the monologue and the cold open, but were there moments where you're like, we got vintage Marty here, or was he a passenger to the cameos in the cast?
So let me just preface by saying that these opinions are my own. But the as far as I'm concerned, Marty was absolutely a passenger to whatever was happening around him. This was not. I wouldn't look at the episode and be like, oh, wow, we got a great Martin Short moment, because Marty Short has, as far as I'm concerned, some of the greatest sketch comedy chops I've ever seen. So I didn't see any of that in this episode, and that didn't take away from my enjoyment of it. As you know, viewers have listened, I did really enjoy what we got here. I felt like a lot of things were what I look for in the show. But if I'm just going to answer your question directly about Marty, yeah, I mean, he definitely took a step back. I mean, at least, Andrew, what we got in season 48 was Minky. But no Minky, Andrew.
Well, didn't they cut a second Minky?
Yeah, they cut a second Minky. I was really hoping they kept it so I could talk to you about it. But yeah, I mean, like, I felt like Marty was good in the monologue, and like, again, his standard for me is like super high. So the bar, like, I guess his floor is also really high. So I really enjoyed the monologue. I felt like he had some good moments throughout the night, but like, I didn't get anything that I was like, wow, this is one of the greatest to ever do it, and they're showing me how good they are.
Quick correction, I didn't scroll down all the way. Jean Smart had 12 minutes 18 total, so this would make Marty Short ahead of her as well. So thinking of that episode feels like a million years ago already. Yeah, we know that, but as far as the usage of a host and the kind of the vibe leaving that night, did that feel at all similar? We're like, okay, she's older and she's sick, first timer, but now we're looking at a five timer. So in my notes, I did do my comparisons of usage to other hosts, and pretty interesting considering the five timers. So comps for Marty Short's usage were David Harbour, season 45, Keegan Michael Key, season 46, and Sandra Oh, season 44, had like identical power ranking impact score. And those were all first-time hosts, and this is a five-time host. So, John, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's really tough, man, because like, you know, that's one of those things where the numbers are super interesting, and I don't know that I could find the common thread because this episode is so uniquely different than those ones. So I have to imagine that it's easier to take the three that you mentioned and talk about why they are all similar. And I think Marty's comparison to them is probably just circumstance than anything else, if I'm just being completely honest.
And speaking of circumstance, let's look at the five-timer episodes that have been in the SNL stats era and the screen time. So I'm going to read off the names, and I want Andrew and you to, you know, try to think of five-time hosts that felt dominant in that episode, because, you know, like I said, circumstances, we have the Paul Rudd. That's like the most circumstantial of all SNL episodes. No. So that's Marty, Kristen Wiig, Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, John Mulaney, Paul Rudd, Will Ferrell, and Jonah Hill are the five-time, you know, jacket episodes that I have stats for. So, John, if you think about those ones, a lot of them have been covered by the SNN. One that you took away of like, that's how you do it as a five-timer.
Well, I think two of the most fun episodes I've gotten to cover here on the podcast were John Mulaney's episode in season 47. I just felt like that was, you know, I'm really careful about, okay, this host has now reached the pantheon of greatest hosts of all time type of thing. But I felt like Mulaney finally put his foot down and was like, I am the modern great host, when he hosted for the fifth time and just crushed it. And I felt like they tried different things. They went from the PDD sketch into them watching the PDD sketch in the Five Timers Club. They were willing to play with the format. So I love that. And then I have to go with Kristen Wiig as my other one, because for me, I felt like they subverted expectations. Like, you know, there was we got a couple of moments, like including in the monologue, where we had all these people who were not five timers who then all were wearing jackets, and you got sort of the flip on the whole thing. And then to bring Forte back in a couple sketches and like them just getting to play around with each other, like, to me that was great. And I really felt like it really elevated, you know, my perception of Kristen Wiig's hosting appearances. So those are the two that I felt like really worked for me.
And you'd be dead on with my original question about the impact, because John Mulaney does by far have the best screen time of those five timers, 28 minutes, 2 seconds. One of the highest screen time numbers that we've ever recorded. So again, Marty Short, 1753. Actually, like Jonah Hill, his five timer, 1538. So actually less than Martin Short. But over to you, Andrew Dick, as a five timer. That's Wiig, Stone, Harrelson, Mulaney, Rudd, Ferrell, and Jonah Hill that you was one of the best or that they dominated?
The best. Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely Mulaney's was, his 5-timer episode was quite possibly his best outing yet. And I mean, you said he had, 28 minutes of screen time. You can also just feel his hand just in the construction of the episode, in the writing, and just, like you said, the PPD, please don't destroy sketch fading into the 5-timers like that. That's the kind of thing that Mulaney would want to do, a throwback kind of idea. So you can just feel his hand all over it. And Wiggs, I don't, oh God, I think that might have been my favorite hosting gig from her as well. And then just also to point out, because I think I was here, I was live for it, the Woody Harrelson 5-timers, which was just such a bizarre experience, and the weird runner of like, I want my jacket, and it was very, very odd episode.
Saw ScarJo in that one, giving him the jacket. Speaking of people who are honored to give jackets, ScarJo had that honor. And they referenced it again when Emma Stone got her jacket, finding the joint and the Vax card in the pockets of the 5-timer jacket. So Woody Harrelson actually comes in at number 2 for screen time, 26 minutes 4. That's probably alluding to what Andrew's saying with that rambling, long-ass monologue that got him a ton of screen time that episode. And he was also
and a ton of bafflement for me
and most of the viewers at home. So that's, going to, of course, Paul Rudd, 11 minutes 34 for his outing in the Omicron mentioned episode we talked about last week on By the Numbers. But yeah, I mean, usually I would expect about 20 minutes. And so Marty fell short of that. And we have some people like Kristen Wiig, Emma Stone, who almost had identical screen time, 20 minutes 45 for Emma, 20:55 for Kristen. And John, I agree. Like, I think that's maybe my favorite moment of last season was that, like, Ryan Gosling, Will Forte, Fred Armisen, seeing Lauren. Of course, Marty Short was there as well. So that's how you do cameos. So let's look at this week. And John, the numbers will pop up and you can do the honors for the last time in 2024 screen time, season 50, episode 10.
All right, let's do it. All right, screen time for season 50, episode 10. We're going to start with Marty Short, who was only in 5 segments throughout the night, put up a 17-minute and 53-second screen time episode. Bowen Yang is the leader for the cast this week, so a very impressive number in a episode dominated by cameos. Bowen still in 6 segments, 11 minutes and 27 seconds ahead of our host, Hozier, who was in just the 2 performances, 8 minutes and 33 seconds. Colin Jost in the cold open for just a brief moment, not let into the 5-timers club, with the weekend update and the very extended joke swap. 6:54 for Jost, 6:40 for Michael Che. Paul Rudd, sort of the second host of the night, 3 segments. It was in 6 minutes and 9 seconds, so the cold open and a couple of his sketches. Chloe Fineman is the next cast member up, 4 sketches, 5 minutes and 9 seconds. Marcelo Hernandez had that long Sábado Gigante screen time, 5 minutes and 2 seconds, 3 segments for him. Mikey Day, 4 segments, 4:42. Kenan Thompson, 4 as well, 4:24, tied with Ego Wodum, 4:24, 2 segments for Ego. Heidi Gardner, 4 segments, 4:22, so very close to Ego and Kenan. Tom Hanks, 2 segments, very long in the cold open, opened up the show. Also reprised Sully in the airport parade, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Tina Fey just in the cold open, 3:16. Melissa McCarthy, one of the big talks of the night, won the MVP voting on Monday on our roundtable. 3 segments, 2:55. Sarah Sherman, who's had a very big season, 3 segments, 2:43. Emma Stone was in the monologue very briefly, but mostly the cold open, 2:34. Kristen Wiig monologue appeared very briefly in the airport parade, also big in the cold open, 3 segments, 2:30. Scarlett Johansson, 2:05 cold open, plus that weekend update. John Mulaney pops into the cold open as well, 1:51. Alec Baldwin also 1:40. Michael Longfellow, 4 segments, 1:39. You may be asking where Michael Longfellow's 4th segment was, and we got a nice shot of him getting ready in the makeup chair as Marty was walking around the backstage studio. So 1 minute, 39 seconds for Mikey Longs. Jimmy Fallon, 2 segments, cold open monologue, 1:18. Ashley Padilla, 3 segments, 1:11. Emil Joaquin, 1:09. Jane Wickline, the final rookie, 1 minute, 2 seconds, and 3 segments. Andrew Dismukes, not a big night for Andrew this week. Only 2 segments, 38 seconds. James Austin Johnson himself as well, 2 segments, 30 seconds. Dana Carvey pops into Sabado Gigante for 23 seconds. Lorne Michaels in the monologue for 23 seconds as well. Steve Higgins, 3 voiceovers this week and 16 seconds. And Devin Walker, last on this list, again, 1 segment and only 15 seconds.
Boo. Beaten by Steve Higgins. Get out of here, SNL. Yeah. Get out of here.
The dreaded spot to be. So glad you said it. Is to be behind Steve Higgins in the SNL screen time crowd.
So I can't even remember, what was Devin in? Did I miss it?
He was in the airport parade as one of the massagers with Ashley and Longfellow. That was his
right. Yeah. Jesus.
So huge night for Bowen. So this is his 3rd time this season as screen time leader. So that's tied with Sarah, who's also led 3 episodes. So looking at that, it's like there's 3 for Bowen, there's 3 for Sarah. That means that's already 6 out of 10. So going in order, it was Bowen, James Austin Johnson, Sarah, Longfellow in the Mulaney Show, his first time in career being a screen time leader, Keenan with Bill Burr, Sarah with Charlie, Heidi with Paul Mescal, Sarah with Chris Rock, and then Bowen again this week. So Andrew Dick, first time looking in, live reacting to screen time. Who do you want to talk about other than Devin Walker being beaten out by Steve Higgins?
I mean, oh boy, there's a lot here. There's a lot here. The bottom of the list is really just, I mean, I guess if Andrew did, or, like James did have 1 episode where he kind of commanded, is nice. But again, the constant misuse of Longfellow is just so baffling to me. We are in his third year, right?
Yeah.
And like Longfellow was one of the few laughs I got from the night in the airport parade thing, which I didn't like. At least his deadpan delivery of whatever line he had made me chuckle. Just constantly baffling to me that he's only barely above the rest of the featured players. And I assume that goes for most weeks. I'm sure actually Emil probably beats him most weeks. I don't keep up with the By the Numbers every single week, but I'm sure, he's getting shut out. And having Bowen and Sarah as our cast member screen time leaders is an odd thing for me to consider, especially since like Sarah just, I don't know. I guess it never really worked out exactly how I thought it was going to be when it was like Sarah Squirm is joining the cast. It's going to be so crazy. It's going to be so nuts. The things that she's going to bring is going to be like a whole new paradigm. And no, she's just kind of doing SNL stuff now. And not
so
really.
We did do a whole Sarah career stats and kind of talked about the evolution of Squirm last week on By the Numbers, because she was about to make her 200th appearance, which came in the Marty Short monologue. She did post about how Marty is her hero. And so kind of cool when the stats and the show synergy kind of parallel right there with having a big milestone moment for Sarah, come in a milestone probably for her comedic career. But to your point, Andrew, Michael Longfellow, 15th in screen time, only ahead of Ashley and Devin, but behind Emil and Jane. So that means we have Longfellow and Devin behind, Longfellow behind 2 rookies and Devin behind all 3. So that is interesting. Right. Sarah 3rd in screen time for the whole cast.
I don't get it, but I don't get a lot of SNL at this point. I just don't understand how the show works like this. But,
Well, John, over to you. Let's just open up with a cameo, because there's a lot of names you just read out. And seeing out of all the 5-timers, I guess except Marty, who was the host, Paul Rudd with 6 minutes, 9 seconds. So nice screen time for him. What do you think about Paul Rudd being like the 2nd tier host of the show?
Yeah, I think in terms of impact, you can't take away from what Melissa McCarthy did, who I just really feel like just crushed this episode and reminded everybody that she should host again sometime soon. But yeah, I mean, look, Paul Rudd is like one of the most likable guys that's ever been on the show. I think that people, like he's just so like he never gets too high, never gets too low. He's just like a really just solid guy to put in sketches. And I think if he's around, you put him in stuff. Now, I don't know what went into the idea of let's have Paul Rudd be the guy in Sábado Gigante and not Marty Short, which obviously would have changed a lot of these metrics if it was the other way. But obviously they just felt like, at Marty's, my guess is at Marty's age, they just felt like they needed, the friends to step in throughout the night. And that's why I called this episode more of an all-star episode than a Marty Short episode. So for me, that was interesting. The other one here I find fascinating, again, is like Bowen Yang, who, clearly we talked about how the show seems to be, he's not a consistent star in the way that we got with like a Kristen Wiig and a Will Ferrell, but the show clearly wants to position him as the star of the show. So that means more episodes than not, Bowen Yang is going to be front and center. But I do find it absolutely outstanding that he was able to put up 11 minutes and 27 seconds in this episode with all of the cameos. Like, to me, that number is so much more valuable this week than it is any other week, because it shows that like we're going to have, like, as far as the show is concerned, they feel like Bowen is their best and they want to push Bowen with the people that are coming in. So it reminds me, Mike, a little bit of last year in the Kate McKinnon episode when we got that ABBA sketch and they put Bowen with Kate and Kristen and Maya in that one. And it's like, okay, well, clearly we see you as our next star, the same way that they put Bowen Yang at the Emmys with Seth Meyers and I forget who else was up there on stage now, but before the season started. So like their perception of Bowen and how they want to put him in this role, to me, is very interesting.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, that ABBA sketch was the only new sketch added to the Christmas special this year. I believe I heard
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. So to further your point, I believe.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we did talk a little bit about Bowen going last week because of his screen time was so high, and then he had finally 2 down weeks in the last 2 shows, but this is now his 3rd highest episode of his career. So it's behind Momoa, which I did think about later on and think that was like the big George Santos Candle in the Wind or Scandal in the Wind. So that makes sense. There wasn't a lot of Momoa time, but if you have a cold open and probably update, that will get you there. And so it's Jason Momoa, Molly Shannon, Marty Short this week, and Pedro Pascal, where 4 episodes where Bowen had over 10 minutes of screen time. So this is his 3rd highest ever. So Andrew, I don't know if you're a Bowen fan or not, but would you call him the star of SNL to the layperson?
I don't know. I feel he's like, I don't know. He's very hit and miss for me. And just generally, I think he's very comedically divisive. And so I don't know if you could call him the star in that fashion, because to have a star, most people need to be consistently on their side. And I really don't know. I really don't know, if the show needs a star ever. I enjoy the show when it feels like an ensemble anyway. But it's hard to say if he is. Like, I don't know if I could go up to my mom and say Bowen Yang and she would know what I'm talking about. And she's in and out of the show every so often. So yeah, it's odd. And it's obvious that they're pushing Marcelo probably too soon as the next come up. And, again, I sometimes it just feels too forced to me. It feels like they're doing too much. It kind of runs out. I don't want to say, like their bag of tricks, but, it kind of runs out their comedic lane too early. And so, yeah, like the drone thing was just like, and you got the goofy costume again, and I don't like that. Like, I'm really tired of people coming out in very elaborate costumes. And just it felt unneeded. It just didn't feel like that's what we had was Bowen in a giant drone costume singing Wicked lyrics. Like, I don't know. Again,
well,
I'm just thinking the show is not for me at this point, possibly. So
And that's totally fine. And because I know that there's other people that feel that way, but there's a difference between viewers watching the show and then determining who the star of the show is, and then what the show is trying to push as the star. And I think that what has happened in the last couple of years is that, Andrew, I have actually described this era of the show as the most ensemble the show has ever been, because I don't think that anyone on the cast right now has truly made themselves a star by their own design. Whereas in every other era of the show, there's been someone who is so talented and so great at the job as an SNL cast member that they've pushed themselves to the forefront. And it's not to say that Bowen isn't talented and doesn't have his moments, but for me, I don't know that he's reached the pantheon of like all-time greats to the point where the show is pushing him to the right degree that maybe we would consider him on the level of some of the other stars of other eras. So that's why I find it fascinating, and also find it fascinating that they are similarly doing this with Marcelo, who maybe will get to that point one day, but we don't know that he is now. And I think that that's what they're doing with Sarah Sherman this year. I think it's a huge, difference, as Mike talked about last week, in how they're using Sarah this year versus previous years.
And as somebody points out in the chat, Bowen in more sketches than the host, which is also very rare.
Yes, I believe we did post a stat that the last time that happened. Mike, do you have that one?
What about the Dave Chappelle one election episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that was the last time that there was a live sketch the host did not appear in. And that episode had two of them. There was the Mario Kart one, first sketch after. Well, I think it was they had the mascot sketch with Dave, and then they had the Super Mario sketch with no Dave. Then they had the Hailstorm sketch. It was two that night that had no Chappelle at all. And then the Marty, there was he wasn't in a pre-tape, but that's not as uncommon at all compared to a live sketch. And then he did not appear in the Sabado sketch. So also an interesting tidbit, John. I know we do the comparison to the last time they hosted who had screen time and who's going to get the most this week was Andrew Dick, who just had the 4 best episodes of his career, had 38 seconds this week with Martin Short. Last time Steve and Marty hosted, Andrew Dick had 38 seconds of screen time. So that was a funny one for someone.
Andrew does not work with Marty Short.
Yes, not.
Just refuses to work with Marty Short. Okay, so I'm at the bottom of this next segment, this list here. But me and John, quick plug, we will be doing our annual mid-season by the numbers, where we look at this whole season so far and how it compares to last year's season, maybe to this point, and all the rundown of everything you could possibly need. I thought, because we're doing a show after Christmas, and it's kind of just a weird mixture of the second half of 49, first half of 50, who we've seen the most of in SNL. So to wrap up our screen time segment, figured I'd just throw this on here real quick. So, John, who do you think has the most screen time of anyone in SNL in 2024?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would guess Heidi Gardner, probably, because Heidi was really, as far as I'm concerned, Heidi, if you had to make like a DVD cover for season 49, I feel like Heidi gets the DVD cover for that one. They haven't been using her as well as I would have liked them to in the fall this year, but I think that she's had some solid numbers, and I'm going to guess that's what it is.
And Andrew, who outside the cast do you think has had the most screen time in 2024?
Outside the cast, like host? Wait, rephrase.
Yeah, maybe in both seasons or just a lot.
Wait, so not a cast member.
Not a cast member, just somebody, because I'm going to go to the top of this list right now, and I think you might be surprised who people that have more screen time than cast members in a calendar year.
Does the Police Don't Destroy Boys count? Are they cast?
They would count, but their screen time is pretty low. I mean, we have Ben Marshall at 7 minutes.
It's Dana. It's Dana.
It's gonna be Maya Rudolph, 6 episodes, 53 minutes, 46 seconds. So that's out of all 159 identified individuals in 2024 on SNL. Maya Rudolph has the 13th most screen time. So, of course, after election cycle is not a surprise. But we're 22 episodes in this year. So we had 12 to wrap up 49 and now 10 to start 50. So 37 people were on screen for 20 minutes or more. Excuse me, 12 for an hour or more, and 3 for 2 hours or more. So John said Heidi, she'll come in at third, is one of the individuals with 2 hours or more. That's 2 hours, 1 minute, 23 for Heidi. But Colin Jost is number one at 2 hours, 14, and Bowen at 2:10. So John, thinking about SNL in 2024, has there been any identifiable shift between 49 and 50? Because, we don't usually look at a calendar of SNL, rather a season.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never look at the calendar, but I just did this exercise because next Monday, Bill and I are going to do the top 10 sketches of 2024. So I thought it was fascinating to combine these two. So this is exactly perfect for this. But yeah, I mean, the down size in time between back half 49 and front half 50 for Heidi, James, Mikey, and Keenan is crazy. Wow, like that is a huge difference.
Yeah.
So those are the people that I think if you are watching season, and I'm not one of these people that has any problem with all of the cameos, but I think if you are one of those people who's watching the show this season and wish that it was more cast focused, I think those are the 4 people you could probably complain about not getting enough time. But what I am a little bit surprised about is that I expected a huge increase in season 50 time for Sarah Sherman based on the way they've been using her, but it seems like the time is about the same. Maybe they're just giving
2
her
less
more important roles.
episodes.
That's fair. Yeah.
12
so on
versus
pace.
10, so.
Okay, yeah. So basically, okay, so good, that's a good note. Okay, so but she's on pace for more. It's just to me, this Sarah usage is just really fascinating. I know we talked about it so much, but I just find it really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I will look up the pace for Sarah for this year versus last year. But for what Andrew said about Dana Carvey, is he's at 21 minutes, 44 seconds. So if you're hoping for a Dana hosting stint, we kind of already got one because he's got more screen time than a lot of the hosts we saw last year and this year. At 9 episodes out of 10, 21:44. So that'd be more screen time than Charlie XCX. That'd be more screen time than Dakota Johnson, Iowa Debris, Keaton, Gene Smart, then a lot of musical guests, and we get into the under 10s. It's mostly musical guests here, but
right.
It's definitely interesting to look at that. So, John, please let me know for you and Bill's show if you want any 2024 stats.
I'll definitely Andrew, what did you think about my take that the 5 Timers Club should have ended with Dana Carvey giving the jacket to Marty and not Jimmy Fallon? Like that was the place to put Dana in the show.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of Dana'd out, though it is weird. Like I just assumed in the cold open, it's like, he's not around this week. So then to hear that he did show up in Gigante was like, okay. No, actually, I thought Jimmy was one of the more locked in of the cameos, to be honest. Which is a weird thing to kind of say about Jimmy at this point, but he was, strangely. I mean, I guess, some people seemed kind of at sea during that cold open, and he more or less did.
Andrew, I don't know if I'd say Jimmy Fallon seemed locked in, because you just watch his energy coming. He looks very, and I'm not a Jimmy Fallon hater. The opinions here are all my own, but just the chaos of Jimmy Fallon is very much like a dog watching cars drive by the house. Just his head was moving in insane directions, and it was
so many celebrities.
Well, he felt like me. Or maybe I felt like I feel like Jimmy was like, what's going on here? Why is everybody on the stage? And I thought he nailed the part with Lauren backstage.
He did.
I did like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just the whole Dana focus on the first chunk of this season has been kind of strange.
I'm so surprised with that take. Could we just talk about, because I don't get to, I know we're doing By the Numbers tonight, but I really don't get to talk to Andrew Dick about modern day SNL very much. So I enjoy and revel in the opportunity whenever I can. But how can you be Dana'd out because you are such a fan of his era of the show, And like, we don't have Phil, we don't have Jan anymore to come
know.
around. Like, isn't it nice that we get somebody who's like a Mount Rushmore potentially cast member to come back at this point in their lives to be on the show?
It is nice in that sense, but for me, Dana is a very tricky person comedically, where he needs the right people around him to write the right material for him. You know, if not, you get stuff like Master of Disguise and stuff. Like, kind of Dana can get kind of hacky left to his own devices. It's like a Joe Piscopo, very talented on the show, needs the right people and collaborators to shepherd him into these scenes. And if with all the right conditions, he'll crush it. Absolutely. I don't think those conditions are here right now. And really, if I was Lorne and I was going to have Dana around almost every week, I'd be calling up Robert Smigel and saying, hey, you want to come guest write for a couple weeks with Dana and, you know, kind of get these weeks going along with him. I know Robert was there for at least 1 week. And that would be my sort of line of thinking, but I just don't think they did much great with Dana this season. He didn't really make me laugh that much, and the church lady thing was just like, oh, he doesn't really have this character anymore. Like, he didn't really have that in the back pocket anymore. But I don't want to just, you know, smack him down. I still like Dana, very talented, but it did feel, the focus on him felt very odd to me, to be honest.
And John, my take on Dana, I did do a question in 5 questions last week about if Dana doesn't appear again, like what we remember about it. This one, I just did not like him coming in that sketch. It was already on a weird foot with Paul Rudd doing the host duties for Marty. And then when Dana came in, I'm like, okay, why is he here then? Does Dana not want to leave? Because for years I've been like, let's get more Dana. And I'm definitely not complaining that we're seeing more of him. But that spot was just bizarre.
I heard it died. I was not watching,
rough.
But
it was so rough. But again, I don't mind him being there. I just thought it was very weird to me that the way that we built the show was, okay, we're going to have all of these really famous people in the SNL world be there, and you never know when they're going to pop up throughout the night. But Dana was also there, who, again, to me is like a top 5 cast member of all time. And you didn't establish at the beginning of the night that guy is in the building and do something with him. So it felt like almost like he was an afterthought, and Dana Carvey should never be an afterthought on SNL.
Well, again, it felt like Marty was an afterthought.
But maybe that was his choice.
Literally any SNL alum doing that part. First of all, watching live, I had no idea what Dana Carvey said until I did screen time and actually got the joke of what Paul Rudd was responding to. So for me, it was bizarre. But much like Sandler under the sheet, like that got me very excited because I just didn't expect it. And it had been that much into the night that I was down for it. It wasn't like Sandler came out in the monologue and then was like, hey, I'm here. I might as well do some sketch work while I'm in the building. Where this for Dana, who's done 8 in a row, is absent for the Rock show, and then it's not in the cameo heavy beginning of the show or even in the backstage monologue. Would have been kind of funny to see him like getting ready for a character that we didn't see, even just as a nod to, you know, if it was Garth.
He just has a dressing room now. Yeah. It's just, he's a cast member.
But if we saw Jay Farrow come out, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, Jay Farrow's getting a 23-second moment on SNL.
But no, I disagree, though, because there's a huge difference between Dana Carvey and Jay Farrow with respect to Jay, who I'm sure we'll all be excited to get back there. But again, like Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig, Bill Hader, like those are people we've seen at the show a bunch of times. Dana Carvey is, again, an all-time great cast member. He's probably in everybody's top 10 at some point. He's somebody who has not come back to the show very often over the years, and then you have him back for this like special season of the show. I think you got to use him and promote like, hey, this guy's in the building.
I agree with that for the season 50 aspect of it, but not for that Sabado Gigante bit. I'm saying that could have been anyone. It could have been a cast.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. I'm totally with you.
And maybe if he hadn't been around since the election and popped back up, it would have been a special, like, oh, hey, Dana's back. That's fun or whatever. But yeah, he has been basically there every episode. So him popping another cameo in a cameo packed episode, that late in the night, it lays fallow. So probably should have just given it to Devin or something. He needs the screen time.
Even a PDD guy, we've only seen them twice. So let's move on to 5 questions, shall we?
Okay.
Any questions?
Question 1: where does the Five Timers Club sketch rank in SNL history for just a recurring sketch? And a follow-up: is it the SNL-iest thing of all time? Andrew, you first.
Where does it rank? It's I don't know. It's strange because it has strangely a rigid format, but it can go so many places because you can sprinkle so many different people into it. And so it's a lot more fun when, say, you get Mulaney in there and it's Candice Bergen and Elliot Gould and Conan O'Brien. People that are you haven't seen recently, and it's like, hey, I would never come to blows with John. So yeah, but then other times it just seems perfunctory, like they're just running through the motions. And so tonight, the Christmas episode, it did just feel like we're running through the motions. But this time, the trick is there's 35 people, and everybody has 2 lines. And it just doesn't really hang together as a sketch for me. Like, I like it when at least they have an idea. Like I'm not a fan of Jonah Ray or whatever, or not Jonah Hill. I like Jonah Ray. But Jonah Hill, like, at least they had like an idea for that Five Timers as well. Like, there was an idea baked into it rather than just cameos. Like, I just don't like cameos as the overriding idea of the sketch, of just here's people and there's more people and there's more people and there's more people and there's more people, keep clapping. So it kind of lands in the pantheon of reoccurring sketches, probably somewhere in the middle, just because sometimes it is fun. The first iteration of it is super fun, and what a great idea. But then at a certain point, I feel like maybe a decade ago or somewhere along there, it just kind of became this thing like, we got to do it. It's 5 times now, so we got to do this, but we don't really have an idea, but we got to do it. And sometimes they try weird things. Like, again, we talked about the Woody Harrelson thing where they kind of failed on the whole idea of like, and now my jacket. And they just never really follow through on that. Just somewhere in the middle. But it is definitely the most SNL-iest thing ever, because it also rides the line between a very concept and writerly driven concept, and also, hey, here's famous people. That's good enough. And so that's kind of SNL in a nutshell.
Right. Andrew's referring to the Jonah Hill. His bit was he only got women in the Five Timers Club to appear, and he was disappointed that there wasn't a Steve Martin or a Tom Hanks there. So that was a good angle. And I think the will they or won't they is a fun aspect, because though the Woody Harrelson one was bizarre, it was kind of fun to play with the audience of, are they going to do this? Are we going to see people come out? So, John, for recurring sketches, we've done the best lines and best characters and stuff. So we kind of think of this as a meta sketch, so we don't kind of put it in that pile. But for you, I mean, Jon Schneider loves SNL, spoiler alert. So where does it go for you for a recurring sketch? Because you're going to always be referencing the last one, which recurring sketches don't always do that. Sometimes they don't do that enough, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, look, if anybody knows me, they know that like this was really like made for somebody like me. I think I posted in our patron Discord the jizz in my pants meme and said that was me every single time a new Five Timer walked into the room. So
wow.
I was look, still there is
and I posted jingling keys on Twitter.
Yes. We don't want to combine those two things because then we get a key party, which is a whole other sketch. But there's a huge difference. To be real, there's a huge difference between something that Andrew mentioned and some way I feel about it, which is this to me is not about getting a bunch of famous people in a room together. That's what was happening during the first Trump administration, when we were like, let's just get famous people to play all of these people in the administration that most of them didn't really have a lot of SNL history to them. This is, let's get a bunch of SNL famous people in the room to be there together. So like the idea that you can watch the show from George Carlin hosting it in 1975, take your time and watch almost 1,000 episodes of the show to get to 978 and have this fulfilling moment of knowing that you have seen every single one of these people host the show at least 5 times and had your moment to connect with them on the show is meaningful to somebody who has watched all of it. So I just think that there's like, that's why I love it, because, you know, somebody walking down the street is like, oh my God, can you believe all the people that were there? That's not what this is about. This to me is about rewarding people for loving the show for so many years. And I think that these sketches are a love letter to the show. So for me, it is the most SNL-iest thing of all time. And that's why I like it.
So you're saying you did not like when Matthew Broderick was in the Phoebe Waller-Bridge cold open in season 45?
What can you remind me what happened there?
Hey, he was an SNL host. He hosted SNL, so you must have loved it.
I haven't watched that one since that era, but yes, I do like, I like moments that make sense for the building the lore of the show. That's just how I watch the show, but I don't view it as a thing
is
that's
SNL
like
a show that needs like lore built out? Like what
100%.
What did this add though beyond just people on a stage? Like, yeah, they've all hosted the show 5 times or more, but like, again, beyond them showing up, what did you get out of it? Joke wise, like,
because every single sketch that we've loved in the show, it builds a world, right? That's, you know, for people who don't understand Saturday Night Live and they're like, I don't get it, it's not funny. I always tell them it's because you can't buy into a sketch. You need to be able to have some sort of buy-in that the world of the sketch actually exists. And in these cold opens, there is the belief that there is some actual club that's there where all of these people who have hosted for 5 times live there, go to the sauna, have all of these things, and are all very posh. And that the idea of this thing existing is hilarious in itself, because it's just so ridiculous that this would actually exist. So then when you see all of these people, you know, just wearing these bathrobes and making drinks and sort of like this, again, like the head eating the tail type of thing, I think the idea of it is so funny in itself, and that they can keep being so ridiculous to the point where Melissa McCarthy can be like, what she does best at SNL is physical comedy. I'm going to break through the wall. John Mulaney's going to come in. You're never going to know what's going to happen. Maybe we'll get all of them there. We're going to have stockings of each of them with all of their initials on it, as if that they all spend Christmas together. Like, there's moments of these here that if you buy into the world of the sketch itself, it's really amusing. So I'm not saying that it's the best sketch comedy or best written sketch of all time. Definitely not. But for me, like, this is, again, like I said, a love letter to the show. If you truly love SNL, I can't understand how you wouldn't love these.
All right. Good segue to the next question. We should just have our own show of just 5 questions with John and Andrew. This is great. So,
Devin? What are you doing here?
that was the head writers seeing Devin Walker walk into the table read.
oh,
Okay. Question 2. What five timers do you want to throw a New Year's Eve party with? We did this for Thanksgiving. I figured to bring it back with 2 great minds here. John, over to you. What five timers do you want to, you know, be in New York City with on New Year's Eve next week?
Well, I don't know if we can, anyone beyond the grave is applicable here, but I would love to hang out with, I would love Buck Henry, Secret Sicko. I love him to death, and beyond. And I think that I would just love to just hang out with him and get to hear his thoughts. So for me, one of the greats to ever do it. I think he would be hilarious to get to talk to. Obviously, Justin Timberlake for me. I mean, just like the king of all. So I'd love to get to hang out with him. I think maybe Will Ferrell would be another one. Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig. I think, you know, 2 of the greats for me to ever do it on the show. And I think think I maybe would go McCarthy after this week. I think she'd just be so fun to get to just hang out and talk to. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
All right. So recap, John. What's your 5?
So I got Buck Henry, I got JT, I got Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig, and Melissa McCarthy.
Okay, Andrew Dick, what 5 individuals are you watching the ball drop with in Times Square?
All right. Well, you can't have a party without Buck there, for sure. And then, okay, so for music, let's throw in the Paul Simon.
He's not in the 5 Timers Club.
We had to go there.
He doesn't count.
Let's throw in Paul Simon. Who else is a musical person that has done hosted 5 times?
Timberlake.
Beyond JT. Is there anybody?
No, unfortunately,
you're
obligated to pick Timberlake.
No, I like Mike's idea. So then Steve Martin is there. He's playing banjo, picking along. That's a bunch of fun. We got Candace Bergen there for the class. Let's see. Who else do we have?
Chevy
John
Chase
Goodman
also plays the piano. So
oh, that's true. Then we get Chevy in there, and then we get John Goodman pre-sober for the chaos. And that's my party. Is that 5? I think that might have been 5. Chevy didn't do 5?
No.
Chevy
Sorry, no. Chevy is like he could fill a room, so he's fine.
He's a tall man.
I so desperately want to talk to Chevy. I feel like I'm the only person who's enough of an asshole as well to level with Chevy. I think we could do it.
All right, for me, John, I think it would just be me, probably Woody Harrelson and Emma Stone. All right,
because
question.
Why?
Yeah, if you know, you know. Question 3.
I don't what?
And when you hear ding-a-ling, that's your cue, mind! Was? Yes!
All right, let's go on the positive side, Andrew Dick. So, what is one thing about SNL season 50 that you like and want them to keep doing more of? New Year's resolution, do more of that.
Oh, boy. I mean, I don't want to sound like an ass, but this is very tricky to answer. But I did really like the final sketch in the Chris Rock episode. I don't know who wrote it. The bar piece, restaurant piece with him, Chris and Ego.
The head writers, Allison Gates and Ken Sublette, wrote that one.
Ken Sublette was okay. Wow. Would never have guessed in my life. I really enjoyed that one, and I just want like it wasn't even a slice of life, and I know I always bring up slice of life, but it's just like I like more grounded sketches, and just scenes that unfurl. And so I really enjoyed that one, and it had a nice button, it's like it had a nice callback to the whole thing with Chris at the end. Like it worked really well as a sketch, and I feel like Carl Tart, the things that he's been involved with, the Bill Burr, was that Bill Burr, the taxi cab question thing?
That was Keaton.
Was that Keaton? Okay, I liked that too. Again, I like things that have a reality to them. If just like there's a world, like you're talking about the 5 timers kind of having a world that they exist in. I do want some sort of semblance of like, here's the reality that we are. Oh yes, and Carl Tart with the father sketch. Yes, there we go. So yes, they have been kind of sneaking in more of these. Just sort of more grounded sketches, and I'm always gonna want more of those. And I feel like this season they've snuck more in than usual, and they've always been the highlight of the night for me. And I feel like most people have enjoyed them as well. So you should do more comedic variety in your comedy variety show. Please.
I like that take, and to piggyback off that, I think one that so much has happened since then, and there's a lot to talk about with this host. what was the Ariana Grande game night. Kind of seemed like an old SNL meets new SNL. It was zany, and it was, they were throwing, the dummy across the stage, but it did feel slice of life lived in. So I do like those type
and
of
the
sketches.
earring sketch almost got there as well, but I felt like they ramped that up way too quick for me. But I felt like if it, kind of slowly ramped up, it could have been in this conversation as well. So yeah, getting there for sure. Do more of that, please. That's my take.
All right, John, one thing about season 50 that you like and you want to see more of in 2025.
I'll say it's a tough episode to talk about this in front, with just finishing it, but I really liked the way that they were using the cameos. I like the fact that we got like one thing a night that featured a former cast member, and that was cool that they brought it back. Like the fact that we got a couple digital shorts, and that was a throwback to a cool area. The Chris Rock, Adam Sandler thing. Like, to me, I do like the idea that in season 50, that one sketch a night, anybody from the history of the show can pop in and do something. Like, that to me is really fun. So I think that that's a healthy balance. Obviously, this episode was that on crack, but we don't need that when it's not Christmas. And I think if they were to continue that throughout the entirety of the second half of the show, that'd be okay with me.
Christmas is for crack, says John.
Yeah, we did get Kyle Mooney back. So that was
yes, we did, in the most baffling way.
All right, on to the next one.
Big hit out of 77. Star Wars. Nothing but Star Wars.
Okay, I'm going to go to Andrew again for this one, being the Prince of Darkness and all. So what is one thing about SNL Season 50 that you don't like and you want them to stop doing?
Most specifically, I want them to pare back on Marcelo. And I'm not saying that because I don't like Marcelo. I say that because I really do like Marcelo. And I feel like they're really misusing him in a way that is starting to annoy me. Where like the BBL thing and the airport parade thing really bothered, in the short shorts in Chris Rock's or whatever, like he just keeps on popping up and he's like, I'm half naked and I'm dancing, and it just seems like it's built for some sort of fan cam thing for TikTok, and it always just kind of annoys me and feels strangely exploitive of a new fresh cast member who just let him explore his own comedic voice more than having him pop up and do a little dance in some short shorts and stuff. It just feels like they're not utilizing him well anymore. They're not really giving him I did enjoy the first Sábado Gigante, but just like bringing that back as don't. And then the Domingos, like it felt like Domingos kind of really like crushed him for some reason, like, and that's my biggest take from this season is what happened there. Like, what was that? Why? That's another reason was like, maybe this show is not for me anymore because I don't understand that phenomenon at all. But it did seem to like, then suddenly like somebody grabbed the wheel and just turned it on Marcelo, and he can't do, like the son bit with Pedro and stuff like that kind of Marcelo, or it just seemed like we lost him a little bit there. The show just kind of lost what he brought to the show, and I want to stop kind of forcing him. It feels like we're trying to force Marcelo now, and there's no quicker way to irritate me than the show kind of just trying to shove somebody at me, and just like in a way that feels inorganic,
I think that's a measured take, and we probably need more of those in the SNL discourse, because when you talk about a cast member, people want to call you a hater, and then you're like, well, can we talk about how they're used and how they're portrayed? Because there are, for the best and the worst of the history of the show, good and bad usages of people's talents. So I like that take. John, over to you. What do you think about Andrew's take on Marcelo, and then I want to know what you want to see less of. And I think I might know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Well, the for Marcelo, I don't necessarily blame him fully, because I think it's one of those things that maybe you can quibble with how the show is using him, but not necessarily about how he wants to be used, if that makes sense. Because I think that he came in with some really fresh concepts for the show this year, including Sabado Gante. And then, the thing he did with Jane Wickline on Weekend Update, where they were the couple who got together, like that to me was so good. And what happened with Domingo is like, that's a sketch he had nothing to do with. He just happened to play Domingo in the sketch. And I don't think that when they did the sketch, they knew the, potential, the viral potential of it, to the point where he became the star of the sketch when the star was intended to be the women singing in the sketch. So result, they like milked it for all they could, and they're like going to put Domingo merch out there and he's going to be the face type of thing. So like, I just think he got sort of like squeezed into that role, Andrew, more than maybe he wanted to. Like, well,
yeah, like, I saw him a clip of him doing a stand-up, and it was like, I will do some of this Domingo stuff and then shut up and let me tell my jokes. So even he seemed rather, baffled and or annoyed by that sketch blowing up for. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I think I said, like, if you own a restaurant and like one of your main products, like you're trying to push it, but then everyone keeps ordering the side thing off the menu, all of a sudden you're going to be like, okay, well, now I need to start selling the side thing. Like that's what's happening with Marcelo a little bit. Is like, he's sort of being, he there's a segment of the SNL community that absolutely like is enthralled with him, and I think that they feel like they should push him more because of that. So I sort of get that. To pivot back to your question,
before
Mike,
John, you go there, just to dip a toe back into the stat pool. Marcelo Hernandez average screen time, 3 seasons now. Season 48, 2 minutes 56. Season 49, 3 minutes 47. So those were his two featured seasons. This season in 50, average screen time 4 minutes. So up 13 seconds on average from last season, which was about a minute or 50 seconds higher than his rookie year. And then, John, please answer the question. Just figured I'd look up how Marcelo has grown. Like, is it more than it seems in the eye test?
Yeah, but it's always weird, like what the use of screen time is. Like now, it just seems if he shows up, he is the joke. Like we are gonna deliver joke with him, not he's a scene partner, like as part of a sketch. But sorry,
well, again, if that's what people are coming to the show to see, then I sort of get it. But anyways, we'll see how it goes, because I think that his trajectory is really fascinating. For me, like if I'm going to quibble with something this season, I'm going to say the lack of Andrew Dismuke's style sketches. I think that one of the themes of season 49 that we were seeing was they finally let Andrew have moments on the show on a weekly basis where we were getting something from him that was really in his voice. And I think that, we had the Hey Soul Sister this year, and then we had that one with the Brilliant Lawyer. So those were the 2 out of 10 episodes that I sort of feel like were Andrew Dismuke's sketches. But we really have been missing that this season. And it sort of reminds me a little bit of like, I was just rewatching for some preparation for some future episodes of Everything You Need to Know, some of the seasons in the 30s. And like, season 32, like Will Forte basically gets a sketch like every single week. That's like his sketch, his moment of the night. That's very much in his voice. That feels like different from the rest of the show. And then it like sort of goes away for a bit, and he has like pockets of when that picks up. And I'm like, I don't want them to lose something that they have, like a magical thing they have with Andrew.
Yeah, The Brilliant Lawyer was his 3rd longest appearance of his career, but I'm not seeing a lot from this season up the top, even though, as I mentioned, Dismuke's numbers have been like off the charts compared to his other years. But yeah, the Dismuke's flavor, which I would say is most in like the Jumanji sketch, right? Like that was a huge moment, and there's a lot of other ones, but like, the Beanie Babies or, excluding update appearances. I know he's made one this year, but I would be in favor of that too. So yeah, I thought we were going to get a lot of more macro SNL criticism, but we go into some micro into the cast numbers. So, all right, last question.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you're the host, but what's yours? You keep on getting, you leave yourself off on this, Mike.
Well,
what is yours?
We're up against it right now. So
okay,
we're not up against it. No, we have 45 minutes before everything.
Come on, and we're gonna do a
Q&A.
This is all a pre-show. This is a red carpet. Speaking of red carpets, Marcelo's longest appearance was as Mario Lopez on the red carpet. just pepper in the stats when I get into a corner. But yeah, no, we should do more of this. But let's go to the last question then, and then Andrew, ask me anything you want to ask me.
And you, not sure what your role in this skit is, but so happy you're getting airtime. Good luck.
What is the most underrated and overrated storyline of season 50? Because we're getting to the end of this year, but we have a whole other half. So I think we talked about what we like, what we don't like, but let's talk about the storylines. Let's talk about the behind the scenes and where it. Andrew Dick hosts a show called That Week in SNL. We look back at all these different eras. Well, we're in an era. So when we look back at this one from, when That Week in SNL is covering 2024, what's a storyline, Andrew, that's either underrated or overrated? If you have either or both, you can give them to me now.
Okay, so the storyline of what this era is?
Yeah, of what it all means to be in season 50 right now as we are.
Ooh, for me, yeah, personally, I kind of set it up initially is I'm finding maybe the show is not for me. Like at this point, it's not going for me. It's not really going for my comedic tastes, and that's fine. I still love SNL. I love 70% of the 50 odd seasons we have. I'm not without want of SNL episodes to go back to and watch. But yeah, it has been kind of like I did. And actually, John was right there with me in season 48 where it was just like, I'm loving this. Like we hit a patch of episodes where I was digging it hard for 8 straight episodes, like mostly season 48 I really enjoyed. And then for some reason, somehow the essence changed. I don't know what happened. It just kind of shifted a bit. And season 49, I personally just didn't really jive with, and kind of got to the point where it's like, well, I should really stop watching these episodes at a certain point if I'm not enjoying them. And I'm getting back to that point with season 50 where it's just like, if I'm not liking it post update, and that's tricky because I am super done with update. I've been saying that for years, super done with update. These two, that needs a refresh so hard. And so it's just kind of weird, but also it catches me on a Saturday. I've been working all day. I come home. It's not like I'm going out and doing stuff. So like, why not see what SNL is cooking up? And so I do have it kind of at like an arm's length at this point of like, yeah, I guess we'll duck in and see what's happening. But a lot of it's not capturing me. And that is a shame for me. And that is kind of like, I don't know where it felt like an era was starting, and they said, no, actually, sorry, no, we don't like Longfellow and Devin Walker. We don't actually want to have them on the show, and so we're not going to do that. And so it's very weird. I don't know. I will continue to keep on popping in, but it's just like I can't be on hot take shows anymore because everybody gets so cranky about me being cranky, and it's all about just the endless cycle of crankiness that nobody wants. But it's like I always try to keep an open mind with it, and it really is kind of getting to that point where it's like, well, maybe this one isn't for me. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see.
All right. So there's the Andrew Dick storyline. Jon Schneider, overrated, underrated, SNL 50 storyline. I do love that answer though, Andrew, and it does make me.
Oh, I want to point out, Ellis, I tuned out of the Charlie XCX. I definitely tuned that one out. I'm sorry.
I was actually going to say something similar just to kind of tee up John here. while we're on this kind of like era discussion is I am feeling that, but I also feel like that a lot when it comes to a lot of media and memes and stuff. Is it always for me? It's of course not, but I don't want it to ever lose its stripes. Like I don't want it to ever feel like it's not SNL. I'm not saying that I felt that way, but I do get that opinion. So John, over to you.
Yeah, I sort of agree, but I just, I always feel like SNL, the magic of SNL is that we truly never know what the show is going to be before it airs. So the idea that like we've already said what season 50 is before we come back in January and then there's a reset and maybe we get something that looks a little bit different. To me, like I think that we all have to be open-minded to that. So because again, like there's been
I'm always chasing that dragon, baby. Always chasing that dragon.
And I love you for that. That's why I love getting to talk to you about the show. And I believe in having you on the show because I like that about you and that you feel that way. Even in some of the worst seasons of the show, there's a few episodes that are gems there. So I just, you never know when the next gem is going to come around. For me, most underrated storyline of the season, I think the positive influence of Streeter Seidel on the writing, I think is something that nobody talks about. For me, he's one of the best writers in SNL history. And he is often lumped in with Mikey because they are a writing duo and they do produce a lot of sketches together. But Streeter, as a head writer, works on a lot of other pieces of the show. I think he had a very positive influence on the political sketches that we saw this season, where I think my belief is that he formatted them in a way that were much more digestible for the audience in a way that they weren't doing a few years ago. So for me, I'm seeing a lot from him that I really, really like. And I do think that like one day when we do some sort of writers show, I could probably be more evidenced with and list some of those moments to get into this into a further discussion. But I definitely think that's an underrated storyline. My most overrated storyline, I think I saw this in the chat somewhere, but the discourse about Jane Wickline, for me, I think it's super overrated. Like you can feel like you don't like what you've seen from her so far and that you really don't enjoy her pieces on Weekend Update. But like I do feel like the whole world is going to end, how did this person ever get cast on the show discourse, to me is like way too much.
Wow.
I think we got to get it's been really it's been really harsh, Andrew. And even like for me it's her style is different, and
I'm starting to cue in. I'm finally starting to cue in.
Yeah. And
actually I didn't do an underrated, but speaking of the feature players, Emil coming out super hot.
Yeah.
And really just filling in so many spaces. Like it feels like really honestly we don't need Mikey there anymore. Like Emil has completely, you could throw him into any Mikey space and we're good.
That's why I think this rookie class is great. I mean, it's been really fun to get to see these three people come on. And like I've said this before on the show, but I'm going to say this again. Jane Wickline being cast for the show has nothing to do with Chloe Trost being fired from the show.
Oh, is that what those people are doing?
Yeah, those two things are completely like, they're like, well, we could have had Chloe. Like, no, if Chloe wasn't brought back to the show, nothing to do with Jane Wickline being cast on the show. And obviously the show feels that there's something that they've seen from her. And perhaps the same way that we've seen 100 and something other cast members develop in their time on the show, Jane Wickline is going to be bringing us much different stuff than we've seen from her so far through 10 episodes. But for me,
she's the comedy variety I need. She comes in and does something that does not play to 90% of the audience. It's like she is 100%. The comedy variety that the show thrives on. So
right. And it's like it does remind me, I was like reading some discourse about when like Fred first got on the show. And people were compared him very much to like that he was Andy Kaufman-esque, that he would go out there and do things that were like sort of like anti-comedy. And I think that was refreshing for people. And then he naturally developed into something else. And it would be very interesting to follow the trajectory of where we get Jane Wickline in a few years, who I think that the show did something different. Like a lot of people are cast on the show that they're very like built for SNL, and I don't know that she is, so it'll be exciting.
No, I don't ever want her to lose her voice. That's the thing. And I do want to week by week never quite know what she's gonna do. I didn't watch that Peanuts sketch, but I did see her do the Peanuts dance, and I was like, of anybody in this cast, Jane knows the Peanuts vibe. She knows what's up. Out of this entire cast, she hit it. And so, yeah, no, I did not know about that. I guess I'm not that cued into that, but no, that's exactly what I want. That's the dynamics you should have in a cast. You know, I don't want to like throw her into the exact same pod, but it's like a Victoria Jackson of like a completely different comedic voice from the rest of, or Fred, you know, just like, yeah.
Yeah, and let me advocate in public. This is why I think Andrew Dick is a valuable member of the SNL fandom, because someone like you who sees those things, I love it when you advocate for those cast members. So for me, like keep championing her, because then maybe she won't lose her voice, but she'll find a way for other people to get to enjoy her as well.
And I was maybe the first one. I came in the Hot Take show on the Bargasi episode, and I was like, I don't quite cue into her vibe yet. You know, it's like that had her first update piece. She was in the water slide sketch, and it was like I was just like, I'm not. I don't quite get it yet. But as the episodes are rolling along, I'm starting to cue in, and yeah, I don't want it to change. I don't want it to be a Sarah Sherman like situation where it's like you kind of abandon what you could have brought into the show to do kind of broad SNL stuff. Like, you know, just like, yeah, no, bring in your unique voice and keep that. Please keep that. That's what I'm here for.
Just wanted to look up while John was doing that, I think, very important speech that we should not say it has to be Team Red versus Team Blue, or, you know, this cast member is here and this one's gone. But I felt I'd be remiss as the stat guy to not just look into it. So Jane Wickline, season 50 projections versus Chloe Trost finishing rookie only season.
Michael, what are you doing?
Worse.
What are you doing?
I have to. Jane is projected to have almost identical stats to Chloe Trost, which is pretty interesting. So, Jane's on pace for 44 minutes and 18 seconds of screen time. Chloe Trost finished with 44:25, so 7 seconds difference.
Mike, what are your thoughts on Jane Wickline?
I'll happily give you my thoughts, and I think he kind of inspired me to think of, you know, something from my own life, which was I went to a music school for college, and I remember when I was a kid, I was just like a young piano player, and I went and bought a synth from some guy on Craigslist, and I was like 13 years old, and he went to the same college that I eventually went to, and I was like, oh, I really want to go to, you know, Berkeley someday, like any advice? And he said, oh, just come in with your own thing, otherwise the school will make you just one of them. And now thinking about that in SNL lens, is Jane might not be for everybody, but I think she definitely did come in with her own thing, and I hope she harnesses that, fine-tunes it for the people that do like her, and if she does that, that will make people who maybe don't like her now be like, I don't maybe love her, but I get what she's doing and I appreciate it, or they might have end up loving her. So that's kind of what made me think about that.
Nice.
But and appearances projection. Jane Wickline on pace for 44 appearances. Chloe Trost finished with 47 appearances. So very similar. So in a season full of cameos, and of course, you know, talk about overrated or underrated. Like, I really wish season 50 wasn't an election year. I'll just say that, because what we've been getting from the SNL history and the archives, it would have been nice to have 5 or 6 shows that didn't have to cover, you know, the biggest election of all time. And we have these cameos. I'm not
still the feature players getting in there. I will give them that for this season. They really have, to the detriment of a handful of people, they're getting in there. So that's nice.
So that's a good segue to the power ranking. So now we have 10 episodes, again, halfway through the year. Jon Schneider, what do we see here? Because we had some really tight races last time we did this, and now we saw more of what we saw in the beginning of the season with who's on top and who's number 2, and people in a cameo heavy episode, a lot of down scores across the board, except for the number 1 here. So take it away.
Yeah, so a lot of these positions are starting to solidify where we have these like up arrows and down arrows. So not a lot of movement here between episodes 9 and 10, but Bo and Yang stays in the first spot here. So definitely puts up a 160.8. Mike, is that's one of the largest of the season. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at Bowen's numbers the whole year, like he's now had 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5 over 100 episodes, and that's his highest. So that is the best episode of the year. We saw Heidi have a huge.
I have no
week.
clue what I'm looking at here.
we'll explain it.
Okay, so basically,
Heidi had the best episode in the Paul Mescal episode. So John, this would be number 2.
Yes. So Andrew, just to catch you up to speed, basically, this is a power ranking a number that Mike put together that summarizes screen time and appearances, and it's a weighted score. So basically, how valuable is somebody appearances on the show? It's some of the episodes we've done over here. He's explained how this works. It's a little bit of a complicated formula, but basically, the higher number is the higher impact on the show. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you are the lead in a sketch,
right. It's like we discussed earlier. In terms of Marcelo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
I get it.
So with Bowen, 160.8, that's the biggest of the week. Keeps him up in first place at a 94.7 for the season. Colin Jost jumps up to second place here at a 79.9, putting up a 92.8 in week number 10. So naturally, with him being basically, the main star of Joke Swap, that he's going to have that boost here. Sarah falls down to the third slot here at a 79.7, only a 45.8 for week number 10. Heidi maintains her fourth spot here in 79.1 with a 74.1, so pretty average score for Heidi this week. Andrew does drop down to a 76.1, 17.9, so a pretty low week for Andrew. Like I said, would love to see more of him on the show. Ego jumps up to 6th, 68.6 with an average score this week of 68.2. James Austin Johnson goes down to 65.1, very low score for him, 13.1 this week, his lowest of the season. Marcelo has a 62.4 here. He stays in the 8th slot, 56.5 for week number 10. Mikey's average jumps up to a 60.6 in 9th place. He was really at the top of this the last couple seasons, Andrew, so very surprising to see Mikey here at 9, 82.3 for him this week, so moves up slightly. Keenan drops down to number 10. Talk about somebody who was at the top of the power rankings for many years. 10 for Keenan, 60.4 down to, puts up a 76.2 this week. Michael Che stays in 11. Basically, everyone from this point forward will stay in their slots that they were last week, but Che has a 56.2 with an 85.4 this week. Chloe is at a 55 with a 78.5 this week. Emil has 42.5 with a 27.1 this week. Michael Longfellow is in 14th place, 37.8 and a 31.9 this week. Jane Wickline, 35.7 and a 20.9 this week. A 35.4 from Ashley in 16th place with a 26.2. And then bottom of the list, as he was previously, 33.3 for Devin Walker and only a 9.2 score this week for Devin.
My boy. Oh.
Thank you, John. So, yeah, Andrew, this is just a stat that tries to put one number into a certain episode. So it's not really about like how, judging on other factors. It's just about that 1 week. So just that week in SNL. So just, having how much did they have an impact on that show? That's why we do an average over the year, because some weeks will be a big Sarah week and some weeks will be a Keenan week. So after all, see where they all shake out. So
this is all math, music nerd shit, and I don't understand it. It's fine. Mike, what are your thoughts on the musical guests? You're a music guy. Oh, sorry, did I? We're
Go
still
ahead.
In the power ranking. I didn't know if I interrupted the power rankings. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. I mean, I have always mixed feelings. I think this year has been better than the last few years, but I would like to see a couple more legacy musical guests. We saw Stevie Nicks, and I guess you could say Coldplay is a legacy musical guest, but I thought I did not. I didn't. Oh, I really want to see. I mean, I don't think Paul Simon is ever down to do the show again. So, but I would love to see Paul Simon. And
he's got the hearing. He's got
exactly.
Problems,
so, I remember seeing Paul Simon at the Yankees opening game on TV. He was singing "Me and Julio Down to the Schoolyard" and a broadcast. Okay, well, I guess he can still perform, but he hasn't been on since the Seth Meyers show a few years ago. So, but definitely McCartney. I think we need some Beatle energy. The Beatles are up for a Grammy. They're hot right now. There's, so people like that. Anyone who's definitely done the show before, but mean, I could go on and on about that, but I'll do some musical guest stats soon.
Okay.
But
all right.
but this is your chance, Andrew, to look at the whole cast of just this year, not just the Marty episode, not big, huge questions, just about this cast and what you think about this cast. So that's all we need to talk about here.
I mean, I really generally like this cast, but I mean, really, you go down to, oh boy, I think it should start with Andrew, or just like so many of the people that have been on the show for the longest tenured people. I'm kind of done with. I don't know what to say. And so, it's just like we get to Andrew as the first one. It's like he should be probably number one. And like Ego should be, I love her, but should be kind of closing out the era too. And then James and then Marcelo and Mikey should be gone. And Keenan.
Can I throw out a question to you, Andrew?
Hello. What's up?
Yeah. Who's the longest tenured cast member that you've enjoyed their later season?
Ooh. Well, speaking of season 30 or season 48, rather, Mikey, they had the perfect season to go out on. He had a brilliant comeback from just kind of being the guy that explains sketches and stuff. And, still doing a couple good things every so often, but it kind of become an annoyance in a way. And then had an amazing season as the kind of the Keenan type overseer of the season, and crushed it. And then he's still there, and he's still kind of doing now I'm the director, cut, I'm here now. And it's it's very just again, it's these are the roles that why is Mikey still there? Give it to Devin, give it to Longfellow, give it to Emil, give it to Jane, give it to Ashley. Just cut down the cast. I don't need these people there for decades.
But you do understand the whole sticking it out through 50 type of thing.
No, I don't. I really don't, because we are now knee deep in season 50, and it is not paying dividends to me to the cast.
If you were in the cast,
it's why would you stay here and to do this? To have the Christmas episode, the big Christmas episode with 30 cameos, and it's look, Ma, I got 20 seconds on the Christmas episode. I'm a cast member that they pay. It's what is this? What is the show?
Because you're being if you were on the cast and you had the opportunity to be paid to do some sketch comedy and be on the biggest season of the biggest sketch comedy show ever and have all of these eyeballs watching you, you wouldn't also stick it out through the season?
No.
You wouldn't just be like, you know what? I peaked a couple years ago, so fuck it.
That's what everybody does. That's what Lauren said. It's I'm going to get to the point where I should leave, and then I'll leave 2 years later. I mean, that's the SNL story for sure.
I can understand you making this argument next year, but I just think that there's no.
I just don't think it's paying dividends. These people staying on this long, Jost, Che, Heidi, Mikey, it's not, we're not getting classic moments out of them. What classic sketches? We're just getting rehashes of stuff we've seen before. Heidi plays another wacky mom character.
No, Mikey, I totally disagree about Heidi with respect, because I do think if I know maybe you didn't care for it, but I do think if we were to ask the public at large about their favorite sketch of the 2020s, Heidi Gardner breaking in Beavis and Butthead was
that's just laughing. That's just laughing.
But that's a Mikey Day Heidi Gardner
talent.
Yeah.
But that's not comedic talent. That's not and that sketch annoyed me to no end. And that's
I
not.
Thought it was a great moment.
Well, I want to just jump in here to anyone who's SNL is more of the same and we need to see more of this person and more of that person, because I've definitely been guilty of that myself. But I just pulled up the final power rankings for 49. So I don't need to say the numbers, but just look at the top 10 last year versus this year. So this is last year's final power rankings. It was Mikey, Heidi, Bowen, Jost, Keenan, Jadge, Ego, Chloe, Dismukes, Sarah. So that's the top 10 you're seeing on the screen now. This top 10 is Bowen from 3 to 1, and Jost is still Jost, but he's even higher this year. There's been a lot of him this year, but it's and then Sarah's number 3, Heidi's number 4. Dismukes is now in top 5. He was in the top 3 last week. Ego still at the same place. James Austin Johnson 7, Marcelo, Mikey, Keenan. So we saw the Keenans and Mikeys drop and the Sarahs and Dismukes rise. So that's kind of my only point, is that it definitely has mixed it up for this huge season, that there's more people that we didn't see last year. We are seeing more.
I want to see the below the line people come up. Like, I'm just, that's my
my
whole thing.
That's my point.
Yeah, that's always how I feel. Yeah, no, I want fresh. Like, I don't care about, like, honestly, I don't care about the people that watch SNL like once every 2 months. Like, I don't care. Like, it's like I watch it every goddamn week, and I want to see the new people come in and do their stuff, and then like 5 years from now leave because I've seen it.
Yeah,
like,
see, and and again, I watch it every week, and I want to see greatness on display every week. And I'm not saying that we're getting that from this cast, to be clear, but what I'm saying is that, like, if you're gonna if there was an all-time great at the show and they wanted to keep on the show and keep producing great material, I'm not just going to be like, oh yeah, well, they've been there for 7 years, so they should go. Like, if they still got it, they still got it. So if you don't think they have it anymore, that's different. But I'm not just going to count. Like, to me, like, if somebody does 10 years of greatness, then yeah, like, put them on the top 10 of all time. Like, that's great.
Andrew Dick, are you a sports guy?
I am not.
Okay, because a lot of these comparisons just work so well to sports careers, where maybe somebody would have had a Hall of Fame numbers and averages if they did leave earlier, but they wouldn't have the legacy. So it's the legacy versus the output versus the consistency.
See, I'm saying the legacy, like, of a Jost and Che. Like, I think if they left at a certain point, I'd be like, ooh, great run. At this point, I see update and I'm just like, oh my God. And Che's going to say it's the 90s again. I'm so tired of it. It's like, it's lessening the legacy for me when you stay on too long, because I'm there every week.
That's the point. Yeah, right.
You're not a roast beef guy, I guess.
This is my sports and I hate it.
Well, you're on the right show tonight, because this is the sports talk radio of SNL. All right. Well, this has been fun. I think we got to have you back on, and maybe near the end of the year, and we can look at it again and have some spirited 5 questions. So, John, what do we have coming up tonight? Tell the people who are in the chat and listening right now what's to look forward to after we do our 45-minute Q&A following tonight's show.
Let's go.
Thanks for having me, Mike. As always, we are 16 minutes away now from the premiere of Everything You Need to Know About Saturday Night Live season 19. This is a season that is really fascinating. It is sort of the season that a lot of people consider as like the breaking point. We have this like second golden era, these new cast members that come in, the bad boys of SNL, and it's all fun and fresh and exciting. And then all of a sudden the dam starts to break a little bit, and we start to see why. And season 19 was a really fun season to produce with the entire team. So we're excited to bring that to you tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So all you got to do is go back to our YouTube channel and switch over to the video tab, and that'll be available to you premiering at 8. And then, of course, we will have some more coverage coming up over the next few weeks before SNL returns. As I said, next Monday, I'll be here with Bill Kenny to talk about the top 10 SNL sketches of 2024 as voted by you. So we have those polls out on our social media, and we have the list pretty much put together right now. So that'll be out for you on Monday. The following week, we will have our patron feedback show. So that form will be available to patrons starting tomorrow. So if you're a patron, go on, register for a time slot, and we will book you on January 6th. For a time slot to come on. I believe Andrew Haynes will be joining me for that show. And then the following week, Mike, on the 13th, you and I will be back here for our mid-season By the Numbers show to go through every single cast member season so far and preview what we might see from them in the second half of the season.
And SNL will be back in the new year, January 18th, only on NBC. So...
That was a first. That was very Jane Wickline.
Wow.
All right. So looking forward to that. And yeah, can't wait to see everyone in the chat. We'll have the great slides ready. So to see everyone's status in season 50. But Andrew Dick, first time on SNN, BTN. Thank you so much. It's just so much fun talking to you. So what can we look forward to with you in the SNL community?
Well, we're on hiatus, the holiday hiatus for the podcast That Week in SNL. But if you want to go listen to me and John scream at each other again, he was just on our podcast covering the Candice Bergen episode from 1975, the first Christmas episode. And then also, we did Matthew Fox and Tenacious D over on the Patreon. We covered the Pee-wee Christmas special. All sorts of stuff going down at That Week in SNL, covering not only vintage SNL episodes, but the entire history of sketch comedy as a medium. And that's what we're up to. And we'll be back probably somewhere in January to do more of our stuff.
Well, looking forward to that. As always, we are a presentation of latenighter.com. Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. I can't wait to talk SNL with you in 2025. So if you're keeping track, we started in 2020. So this will be the 6th different year that we're doing SNL coverage together, John. So anything else to say to listeners before we say goodnight?
No, just subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so you never miss anything we got going on. And you can follow us on all social platforms at the SNL Network to never miss anything that we are posting.
That was a chance for you to say something heartfelt to the audience, John.
Oh, yes. Happy holidays, everybody. And my holiday wish is that you subscribe and follow. But no, I love you all. Whatever you're celebrating, I really appreciate you and hope you have a wonderful end of the year.
All right. Now, I'd like to take the next 8 minutes to thank everyone who's been in the chat this year. All right. For Jon Schneider, Andrew Dick, and for myself, Mike Murray, we will see you next time in 2025.